It's not a big revelation that Gotham was a lackluster show in many ways. There are countless scathing reviews about all the issues with the show from both committed Batman stans as well as people who simply have a basic understanding of good storytelling. For good reason, too. I watched all 5 seasons of the show and was seriously obsessed with it for a while, and I will admit I still have a lot of love for it, but I also hate it with a passion because oh my god, what were those writers doing? However, it wasn't all bad. There were some fantastic performances, some really fresh and interesting takes on multiple well-known characters, as well as the occasional genuinely well-written scene or story arc. The show was a mess, but it was a mess with a lot of potential that sometimes managed to land on its feet. However, most of that potential was unfortunately left untapped. If you don't know much about Gotham, it's basically a prequel to Batman, the story of how not only Bruce Wayne became Batman, but also how most of the iconic Batman villains became the villains that we know them as. We get to see the backstories of several beloved characters such as Catwoman, the Penguin, Poison Ivy, the Riddler, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, the Joker, except we can't legally call him the Joker, Poison Ivy, and the not Joker's evil twin, who is still legally not the Joker, and many more. There's also a lot about Jim Gordon trying and failing to stop crime and other stuff that I don't really care about. I could make several videos untangling the twisted web of Gotham's writing, addressing the good, the bad, and the straight up stupid parts of the show, but there's one part of this hot mess that's caused me the most grief. Gotham is a clusterfuck of homophobia. This video will include spoilers for all 5 seasons of Gotham. So unless spoilers don't bother you, if you haven't watched the show or haven't watched all of it and still plan to, I would go do that first and then watch this video. Just make sure to come back. Wouldn't want you to miss all of my hot takes. I also want to address before I begin the video that homophobia is not the only major issue in Gotham. The sexism, racism, and ableism throughout the show are all topics worth delving into that would each need their own video to unpack everything. This video is focusing in on the treatment of their queer characters specifically. So while these topics can never be completely separated from each other, especially considering that all of the queer characters mentioned are also affected by at least one of these other forms of oppression, I will not be able to fully touch on all the different intersections without making this video hours longer. At first glance, Gotham's queer representation is fairly impressive. We find out in the first episode that Barbara Keene, who is a main character throughout the whole show, is bisexual and used to be in a relationship with Renee Montoya. In Season 2, we meet another main character, Tabitha Gallifan, aka Tigress, who is bisexual and begins an on-again, off-again relationship with Barbara pretty quickly after her introduction. In Season 3, we get official confirmation that Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, is gay after he falls in love with Ed Nygma, aka the Riddler. This especially was a huge move, considering how his character is not only iconic and well known among Batman fans, but also because he was undoubtedly one of the biggest leads in the show. These 3 characters are the most explicitly gay, but the LGBTQ characters don't exactly end there. The Riddler is ambiguously bisexual for the whole show, with his feelings for Oswald repeatedly being hinted and implied, but never flat out said. You could say his sexuality is a riddle left unsolved. Fish Mooney is a main character who was originally created for the show, and she is pretty clearly meant to be sexually fluid. Victor Zsasz makes a comment in the last season about wanting a male officer to strip search him because he's handsome, implying he wasn't straight as well. You could technically throw Ivy and Selena in the mix as well, since their characters are both confirmed not to be straight in the comics. However, nothing is ever explicitly shown in the show to reflect this, so they can hardly be counted as representation in the show standing on its own. Gotham certainly made some effort to include LGBTQ representation in their show. However, when you start to analyze the way they handle the queerness of these characters, things quickly begin to fall apart. One aspect of Gotham that I actually really enjoy is how they make sure to remind us that morals aren't black and white, and therefore their characters' morals aren't either. This isn't unique to Gotham, it's a pretty common trait within the superhero genre. It's why so many villains have tragic backstories or redemption arcs. If we have a story centered around a vigilante, it naturally comes with questions about good and evil and what it means to fight for justice and all the complexities that are intertwined with that. I think Gotham handles this particularly well, though. Well, okay, it handles it well sometimes. by Gotham standards. But they do genuinely get us to feel for these characters as complex individuals. I think that's one of the reasons why Robin Lord Taylor's performance as the Penguin is so great. He is able to capture both the parts of Oswald that are just horrible and manipulative and violent, while also making us feel for him and see him as someone who can believably be both a crime boss with countless murders on his hands, as well as someone who we sympathize with and at times root for. He's driven by his emotions, he's desperate for love and companionship, and we see him show real vulnerability time and time again, and yet he also once murdered a guy for a sandwich. The villains in this show are rarely all bad in the eyes of the audience. There's some exceptions to that for sure, but the ones we see the most of tend to be murderers that we have a strange soft spot for. On the flip side, the heroes of the show, such as Jim, Bruce, Harvey, Alfred, Selena, and Lee, aren't exactly consistently good either. They all have blood on their hands and have each danced with their dark side plenty of times throughout the seasons. So while Gotham does blur the lines between good and evil, it's still rather concerning when you realize all the most explicitly gay characters tend to lean pretty heavily on the side of evil. Oswald, Barbara, Tabitha, and Ed, who will be the ones I focus on most throughout this video, are all complicated characters. They're the types of villains who will usually be the bad guys, but will occasionally pair up with the heroes to work towards a mutual goal. But while there is some gray area for all of them, they are all still ultimately villains. They murder people with glee and will happily stab anyone in the back to get what they want, both literally and figuratively. Is there anything wrong with having LGBTQ villains? No. The villains are probably the most interesting characters on the show, so I don't mind having some queer villains. The major problem here is that all of the major queer characters in the show are villains. The only possible exceptions are Selena, who is never shown as bisexual in the show, and Renee Montoya, who vanishes in season 1 and is never heard from again. So yeah, I'm not sure they work very well as a counterpoint. There's a history behind gay villains in the media. For a long time, movies couldn't portray gay people in a positive light because of strict censorship laws. So if a filmmaker wanted a queer character in their film, they had to show them as the bad guys, or characters that eventually get what was coming to them. Often these characters weren't explicitly gay, but they fit into stereotypes meant to imply their sexuality to the audience. Stereotypes that Gotham's characters also fall into. Oswald and Ed are sneaky, manipulative, and most importantly flamboyant and not very masculine queer men, and Barbara and Tabitha are the dangerous, crazy, and sexually promiscuous bi women. I've heard people say things like, of course Oswald and Ed couldn't work out. They're both villains, it could never be sunshine and rainbows for them. And this is true. In a show like Gotham, it's unlikely for relationships between villains to be healthy or to have a happy ending. But when you think about how they set it up, with only gay villains, their relationships are doomed from the get-go. Villains in Gotham are ruthless and selfish and disloyal, so no gay couple will ever be able to have a completely happy ending. Meanwhile, the relationships between the heroes, which are often still rocky, still had a fighting chance. Bruce and Selena are left open-ended for their future relationship in the comics, and Jim and Lee get married in the final season. What do Barbara and Tabitha get? Oh. Well, how about Ed and Oswald? Oh, they get separated for 10 years after finally rekindling because Jim arrests them and Ed gets sent to Arkham and Oswald is sent to prison. Because of course they do, they're villains, that's what they deserve, right? Barbara and Tabitha's relationship is one that is often a problem for relationships between two women in the media, which is that it's almost entirely catered to straight men. I won't act like I never find it hot when they make out, but their relationship has never developed much further than the physical. We know they care about each other and that they would do just about anything for each other, but their relationship is mostly portrayed as two gal pals who like to make out for fun, never as a serious relationship. Tabitha's relationship to Butch is a good foil for this, seeing as Tabitha and Butch are portrayed as having a real emotional connection. This is unfortunately common for bi women in the media. It's shown that they're interested in multiple genders, but their relationships with men are often more important than their relationships with women. Gotham shows Barbara and Tabitha making out to show how promiscuous promiscuous and unpredictable they are, rather than showing them making out because they are actually interested in pursuing a consistent romantic storyline for the two of them. Things get particularly bad for them in season 3, when Barbara gets progressively more power-hungry and starts undermining Tabitha and treating her like garbage. This eventually leads to Tabitha and Butch planning on killing Barbara, but Barbara figures them out before they get a chance and kills Butch first. After this, Barbara and Tabitha get in a fight that bizarrely includes a moment where they stop fighting to kiss, which only furthers the idea that this show only sees girl-on-girl sexuality as this edgy and sexy quirk to throw in because it makes no real sense for them to kiss in this moment. After that, Tabitha electrocutes Barbara to death to get revenge for her dead boyfriend. Honestly, I had mixed feelings when I first saw all of this go down. Tabitha was repeatedly forced into the role of sidekick ever since her first appearance. First for her brother Theo, then for Butch, then for Barbara. Considering the fact that Tabitha is one of the only recurring women of color on the show, and a bi woman of color at that, I prioritized her getting a chance at her own independence over her relationship with Barbara in that moment, especially since Barbara was treating her so terribly for most of the season. While I was of course upset about them possibly killing off Barbara and ruining their relationship, I still thought this could be a really good direction for Tabitha's character. They could actually let her be her own person for once. But then they immediately teamed her up with Selena. And then in season 4, we find out that both Barbara and Butch aren't dead because of course they aren't. This is Gotham and death means nothing in Gotham. And Tabitha resumes being passed off between them as their sidekick for the rest of her time on the show. So, never mind, I guess. They spend a bit more time developing Tabitha and Barbara's emotional relationship in season 4, which I did appreciate. Barbara is given the chance to run Ra's al Ghul's cult of assassins, I think. I'll be honest, I was zoned out for most of the storyline. But the most important things are that the women in the cult killed all the men because #girl power, and Barbara gets some special glowing hand powers because she's their destined leader. But eventually she is asked to choose between her powers and saving Tabitha, and she chooses Tabitha, showing that she does love her and has learned to value her over her own selfish desire for power.
You win. Just don't hurt her.
I can honestly say that I liked that they did this. It was a good moment of growth for both Barbara as a character and for their relationship. But then season 5 starts, and what do right away? Kill off Tabitha. And despite the fact that death means nothing in Gotham, it actually sticks this time. Great! To be fair, I'm pretty sure they did this just because Jessica Lucas, the actress who played Tabitha, wanted to leave the show, which, good for her, I don't blame her, but ending her character off this way after constantly disrespecting her season after season just left a bad taste in my mouth. To make matters worse, after that episode aired, the official Gotham Twitter posted a tweet saying that Tabitha will always be Barbara's best friend. Best friend? Really? They literally tweeted this with a gif of Barbara kissing her. Someone please tell Gotham that if two women are best friends that kiss, have sex, and remain partners that love and care for each other for years, then they are girlfriends. They don't have to be scared of the gay reality of what they wrote. I promise the bisexual women being in love with each other won't hurt you. Ultimately, while Barbara and Tabitha were canon bi representation, I never felt like they were bi representation being written for me as a bi woman. Yes, I loved them both. Yes, I loved seeing two bi women that were main characters in a show I liked. Yes, I even thought they were hot and liked seeing them kiss each other. And if you are someone who genuinely did feel represented by these characters, that's fantastic. I'm glad, and I don't want to undermine how you felt. But to me, they didn't feel like bi women written for the sake of bi representation. They felt like they were written as women who have sex with women so that the cishet men in the audience could fetishize them without much genuine thought and consideration put into their identity as bi women or their romantic feelings for other women. This makes representation that could mean a lot to many people end up feeling hollow and disappointing instead. Fetishization is not the same as good representation. It's objectifying and dehumanizing. Buckle in, y'all. This is the part that's going to take up the majority of the video, because there's a lot to unpack here. There's also going to be a lot of plot explanation here to make my point, so to the people who know the show really well, hang in there. Oswald Cobblepot, also known as the Penguin, and Edward Nygma, also known as the Riddler, are two of the most well-known Batman villains. Not as famous as the Joker, perhaps, but staples of the Batman universe for sure. Gotham's takes on both of their characters were fresh and really fun to watch develop. Also, Robin Lord Taylor and Corey Michael Smith did a fantastic job playing them, so it's no wonder that they wound up being two of the most popular characters on the show. Watching Oswald climb up from Umbrella Boy to the King of Gotham all in one season thanks to his cunning ambition and masterful manipulation tactics was a joy. And seeing Ed go from the dorky, socially awkward forensics guy who likes riddles to a confident killer mastermind?
Fascinating. Fascinating.
So it certainly didn't come as a surprise that the two of them coming together and interacting was met with a positive reaction. Our story begins mid-season 2. Ed has finally embraced that he likes to murder people after he accidentally strangled his girlfriend Kristen Kringle to death, and Oswald is really struggling because Theo and our girl Tabitha just murdered his mother, aka the only person in the world he felt truly loved by. This is when Ed and Oswald's paths cross, which is kind of perfect for them, because Ed has some murder-based hero worship for Oswald, and Oswald could really use some kind of companionship and a nice pep talk to get him back to his normal self. So Ed nurses him back to health, and then this happens.
Your mother is dead because of your weakness. But what you need to realize is that your weakness was her.
My mother was a saint. The only person who truly cared about me, and now she's gone. And I have nothing left.
A man with nothing that he loves is a man that cannot be bargained. A man that cannot be betrayed. A man who answers to no one but himself. And that is the man that I see before me. A free man.
At which point I know I looked around and went, hey, does anyone else get a bit of a gay vibe? To which other people online agreed yes, there was definitely a bit of a gay vibe. So after this, Ed and Oswald become friends.
Long story. He's a friend.
A friend.
And roommates for a little bit.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Eventually, Ed gets sent to Arkham, where Oswald visits him regularly and showers him with gifts. This is when the homophobic hate crimes really begin. With each passing episode at the start of Season 3, Ed and Oswald's interactions start getting gayer.
Hello, old friend.
And gayer.
I must say you are looking quite the dapper fellow.
And even gayer.
I can't be bought, but I can be stolen with a glance. I'm worthless to one, but priceless to two. What am I?
I don't care. I do not need a stupid riddle right now.
And,
I hope you know, Oswald. I would do anything for you.
But I'm getting ahead of myself here. See, Oswald decides to run for mayor because they wanted to make some commentary about Donald Trump. Which, by the way, makes me offended on behalf of Oswald, and Oswald decides he needs his bestie with him to help him win the election, so he breaks Ed out of Arkham. Then Ed starts living at Oswald's mansion, and while helping him win the election, shows him how loved he truly is. And it's all very...
I can't be bought, but I can be stolen with one glance. I'm worthless to one, but priceless to two. Love. How did you know I would win?
I believe in you, Oswald. Even when you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah. Now, at this point, fans are definitely starting to pick up what they're putting down, and wondering if they're really gonna go in a romantic direction with Ed and Oswald, or if they're just baiting us without any plans to actually go through with it. So then, when the next episode opens with a montage of them acting coupley, followed by this scene...
Oswald, look at everything you've achieved. The people love you. Gangs fear you. And tomorrow night, the creme of Gotham will be gathering to celebrate you. What more could someone ask for?
Someone to share it with.
Followed by Ed acting jealous about Butch getting Oswald's attention, followed by Ed concocting an entire plan to kick Butch out that also uplifts Oswald as a hero to the whole city, followed by all of this.
You were almost killed. And you saved me. Again. I hope you know, Oswald. I would do anything for you. You can always count on me.
Thank you.
It's safe to say hopes were high. In a way, we were right to have our hopes up high, because in the next episode, it's confirmed that Oswald is in love with Ed.
What good is love if it's one-sided? I have no choice but to confess my feelings to Ed.
That's right, the Penguin is canonically gay and interested in the Riddler. He asks him to dinner with plans to confess his love to him, but before the gays could collectively pop a bottle of champagne to celebrate, this is when things start to go downhill. Now, Gotham has pulled a lot of dumb shit, writing-wise, but I think this move takes the cake as the absolute stupidest move Gotham has ever made me sit through. While Ed is out buying wine for his romantic dinner with Oswald, he runs into, drumroll please, an exact clone of his dead ex-girlfriend, Kristen Kringle, played by the same actress wearing a blonde wig. Now, if this wasn't weird enough, during their first ever conversation, she tells him a riddle. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this plotline, I hear you wondering, well, is she part of some sort of scheme? Was she created to mess with Ed or to indirectly mess with Oswald? Does Kristen have a secret twin sister? How is this explained? And the answer is, it isn't. There just happens to be a girl who looks exactly like Kristen Kringle and loves riddles and thinks it's romantic that Ed murdered his ex-girlfriend, who appears in the exact moment before Oswald gets to confess to Ed. This is particularly odd considering the show had literally just introduced us to a Bruce clone created by the Court of Owls, but it's not connected to that at all. The fact that she looks identical to Kristen and seems like she was made in a lab specifically for the purpose of seducing this one man is never explained. She's even introduced in an episode titled Follow the White Rabbit, which, considering she has whitish blonde hair, could have been a double meaning along with the Mad Hatter plotline, implying that she is a trap set for Ed. But no, it's just plain and simple bad writing that is only there to keep Ed heterosexual and deny any possibility of a romantic relationship between Ed and Oswald. For the sake of everyone's time and sanity, I'm going to give a quick rundown of the rest of this storyline. Ed falls in love with Isabella. Oswald is upset and petty about it. Ed starts worrying he'll kill Isabella like he did with Kristen. Isabella is weird about it and dresses up like Kristen and makes him choke her to prove he won't kill her. Oswald gets extra petty by cutting Isabella's brake lines, which causes her to get hit by a train, while I felt like I was the one about to get hit by a train while watching this scene unfold and realizing where the plot was headed. Oswald was dumb and forgot that Ed literally used to work in forensics, so he quickly figures out that there was foul play and wants to find the person responsible. Barbara connects all the dots before anyone else, because apparently she's the only one with any functioning brain cells here, and tells Ed that Oswald killed Isabella because he loves him. Ed is understandably angry about this and wants to destroy Oswald, and then we all had to sit through 3 episodes where Oswald is tortured by Ed and company, both mentally and physically, which ultimately leads to Oswald realizing that he was selfish about his love for Ed, but now he's ready to sacrifice his own life for Ed's sake, and then Ed shoots him and pushes him into the river. Okay, before we get into the rest of the show, let's unpack this storyline first. I think my main issue with this whole arc is just how mean it is. They knew a lot of fans, both gay and straight, would get excited about the prospect of Ed and Oswald as a couple. They were building it up and getting our hopes up, only to basically punish us for wanting it. I mean, the episodes where Ed is torturing Oswald for payback weren't even fun to watch in a Riddler versus Penguin showdown type of way. It was just a series of episodes extensively torturing a gay man after he fell in love with a guy and spitting in the face of every audience member that wanted them as a couple. People will argue that it isn't that deep, that Oswald did a bad thing to Ed, so Ed got revenge. It's simple and what should be expected of the story. Sure, if you're looking at it at face value, it makes sense. I'm in no way saying that Oswald didn't do a horrible thing. The problem here lies with the tropes and implications. Oswald's love for Ed is seen as selfish and cruel, while Isabella's is all-consuming and the one way that Ed could have a quote normal life. Oswald is the evil gay man who is pining for a guy who apparently doesn't love him back, and he selfishly ruins Ed's relationship. He's greedy, selfish, and almost predatory to poor, oblivious Ed. This is riddled with problematic layers. It subtly plays into the fears that straight people have that a gay person will fall for them and all the bad things that could come out of that, ranging from being obsessive to literally forcing themselves on you. Meanwhile, I'm truly not sure if we're supposed to see Isabella and Ed's relationship as a good thing in the first place. I spent the whole time waiting for her to be revealed as a part of some evil scheme because that seemed like the logical place for this to go, because surely the writers aren't that stupid. So I'm not connecting with Isabella as a character, nor am I connecting with their relationship, since one, Ed and Oswald would have been a better pair with more build-up, so I was hoping this was just a bump in the road before we get to the romance that we're actually all waiting for. And two, Ed is thinking of killing her, and then she dresses up as his dead ex, which are some pretty huge red flags to pop up in the first week of a relationship. So how am I, as a viewer, supposed to feel like Oswald is really getting what he deserves when I had no connection to the loss Ed is going through in the first place? He knew her for a week. I'm sorry to the creepy clone lady, but I really don't buy that Oswald took away the love of Ed's life. But despite it hardly feeling earned, the revenge plot quickly turned into how many possible ways can we ruin this gay man's life? Taking his job, his reputation, making him feel like he was going crazy, making him relive the pain of losing his dad, and when he finally realized he had been selfish and was ready to really unselfishly love Ed, he's rewarded by getting his heart broken and getting shot by the man he loved. I know Oswald did a bad thing. We all know that. But this was just cruel and hard to watch. I know some people will say that I'm reducing Oswald to his sexuality, that he's a complicated character who's very flawed and does awful things, and that's part of who he is. He just happens to also be gay, and I shouldn't hold him to a higher standard because of that. I understand that argument, and I would agree if this wasn't the first and only instance of a notable confirmed gay man in their show. If they had several other characters that were explicitly queer men and had a variety of different plot lines, this would be a different situation. But Oswald stands as the only queer man on the show whose attraction to men is flat out said rather than simply implied, and that places a lot more weight on how they handled this storyline. Him being the lone gay man means that the way that they treat his story reflects the show's treatment of gay men as a whole. Because of that, it's impossible for me to simply look at Oswald's sexuality as just another part of his character, even with him being as complex and multi-layered as I know he is. He deserves to be seen as more than just a token gay man in Gotham, but given the limits of the show's diversity, it's ignorant to think that when they officially made him gay, that didn't change the connotations of a lot of his story and the way that most viewers would think of him. For example, when one of my relatives found out that they made him gay, his first response was, "Ew, he was already creepy enough." The way they depict him from then on would hold the power of either proving him and any other bigot right, or making them reevaluate how they think of gay people. Ask yourself, do you really think anything that happened in this story arc would have challenged his idea of gay people, or would it just have reaffirmed his perception of gay men as creepy and predatory? The episode after Ed shoots Oswald, we see that Ed is taking drugs to hallucinate him just so that he can continue to see him. And with this, we get some heavy implications that Ed actually did have feelings for Oswald and is repressing that fact. And when I say heavy implications, I mean heavy implications.
What are you doing?
He is fierce in my dreams, seizing my guts. He floats me with dread, soaked in soul. He swims in my eyes by the bed. Pour myself over him, spilling in, and I wake up alone.
Enough! I admit that killing you killed a part of me.
I I know people say that things have no heterosexual explanation a lot, but that scene quite literally has no heterosexual explanation. Ed is unable to move on from Oswald's death as he realizes the weight of what he's done and just how much Oswald meant to him.
See, Ed, the trouble with talking to projections of your psyche, and you of all people should know this, is that they know everything you know, including the things you're trying not to know.
What did you do, Ed? What happened to Penguin? Something happened, didn't it? Did you kill him?
Oh, this is not gonna be good. This is not gonna be good. This is good.
You did, didn't you?
I feel your every thought. I feel your every move. I felt like there was someone inside of me. Someone stronger and smarter. Someone that people would fear. No one else saw that.
Except Penguin.
Except Oswald.
I want you to know that our friendship meant something to me. I cared about you, and I miss you.
I actually like this episode a lot. I think it's an interesting look into Ed's side of things that really adds a lot of extra depth to the previous infuriating episodes. However, the hints about Ed's attraction towards Oswald in this episode are never actually followed up on. When Ed and Oswald meet again, oh yeah, by the way, Oswald's obviously not dead because once again, death means nothing in Gotham. They both just hate each other and are obsessed with killing each other, which is a dynamic that continues for about a season.
Then we help each other escape. Together. So that we may be free to murder each other outside.
It is my turn! It is my turn to kill you!
I only want
To kill Penguin, yes. I got it the first billion times.
call me the Riddler.
No.
You have a choice, Oswald. This can happen real quick, or it can take hours. Days. It will be.
I'll take option B, Ed.
Hey fellas, asking for a friend. Is it a little gay to be obsessed with killing a man? Just saying. Just saying. They go back and forth about hating each other for basically the rest of the show. They also make us sit through an Ed and Lee romance plot that was just...
Oh, God, are you kidding me?
Who asked for that? Which straight person do I have to blame for this? How did that make sense for either character? Did they really just go, oh, a man and a woman looked at each other, you know what that means, without putting any thought into it? But I digress. The Ed and Lee romance ends with them both stabbing each other and dying until Oswald finds them and makes Hugo Strange resurrect them, both because death means nothing in Gotham. In the fifth and final season, Ed and Oswald team up again to escape Gotham together via submarine because it's become an inescapable war zone. Yeah, they basically decide to run away together.
Perhaps, Edward, we really are meant for each other.
Here's the million-dollar question, though. It's almost the end of the show. There's nothing left to lose. Fans have been wanting it for years. So do they let them get together? Well, short answer, no. Long answer is that they find a way to leave the door open to the possibility of romance without ever committing to anything and pissing off straight fans or producers who wouldn't like it. So, in the penultimate episode, Oswald decides not to run away with Ed because he wants to protect the city. Ed tries to stop him because he doesn't want to lose him again. Oswald tells Ed to follow his heart for once, so Ed decides to stay to fight for Gotham, a city that he hates, just for Oswald. Later, a grenade falls in front of them and Oswald jumps in front of Ed to protect him, seriously damaging his eye in the process. Wow, it really seems like they're going full circle to parallel the Season 3 lesson about how love should be about sacrifice, huh? It must be leading to something. Well, it kinda does. Their plot in this episode ends with a scene that I have some mixed feelings about. Basically, they're both upset about being underappreciated by the city, despite the fact that they also risk their lives fighting for it, and decide, screw the city, they'll rue the day they disrespected us. Oswald says that they'll be stronger together, and they decide to hug it out to cement their partnership. However, they both pull out knives and consider stabbing each other during the hug, but neither of them can do it because they actually love each other. So they finally decide to properly work together as a team. This scene actually does a lot of things right on paper. Here's what works about this scene. They decide that they're stronger together, contrasting the original scene that solidified their connection in season 2. Ed saying that for the two of them, love is a weakness, and that they're better off unencumbered. In the end, that's not true. They decide that their love and partnership makes them stronger. Ed and Lee's romance was a mess of manipulation, lack of trust, and false feelings that ultimately ended in them literally stabbing each other in the back. Ed and Oswald, on the other hand, considerate, but go the opposite way. They realize that they can't go through with hurting each other, so they choose to trust each other once and for all. When they hugged in Season 3, Episode 5, it was Oswald's epiphany that he loved Ed in the gay way. Looking back at it, you can see the difference in their emotions during the hug. Oswald is clearly having a very emotional realization of love and gripping Ed closer, while Ed is just content hugging his pal with his tight-lipped white boy smile. But in this hug, their realizations of love are mutual. Oswald's reaction is almost entirely the same as the first hug, but this time Ed is teary-eyed and grips Oswald closer, showing once and for all that Ed really does love him back. To solidify this parallel, they play the same music from the first hug, which is fittingly named Penguin in Love. It's generally a good way to show the end of their love-hate relationship and have them realize that at the end of the day, they are the only ones who truly understand each other. Despite all the bad blood between them, they choose each other, and I genuinely think that's a sweet ending for them. Here's what doesn't work for the scene. While I understand the overarching thematic importance of them choosing not to stab each other in the back, it just doesn't make sense for them in that moment to consider stabbing one another. Ed stayed in Gotham just because he didn't want to lose Oswald, and Oswald lost an eye protecting Ed, both of which happened earlier this same day. So why would they even be considering stabbing each other right now? It's possible they pulled the knives out as defense because they weren't sure if they could trust the other, but given that every scene between them in that episode only proved how much they care for each other, it feels like a really weird turn for their characters to pull out knives in that moment, even if they don't end up doing it.
Shall we shake on that?
Please. We're brothers. A hug.
Why did they need to include that line? Were they really so afraid of them being interpreted as gay that they needed to add this safety net line even though nothing explicitly gay even happens here? Oswald was canonically in love with Ed, something that was a pretty huge move that a lot of people were excited about, and now they think it's best to just undermine that decision completely by brother-zoning them? The worst thing about this line is that it wasn't even originally in the script. The writer of the episode went on Twitter after it aired to say that the producers added that line on the day of filming without his knowledge, and he wasn't happy about it either. He also tweeted that Ed absolutely did stay in Gotham for Oswald and liked some tweets about Ed loving Oswald back, so take that how you will. This just tells me that the producers were specifically trying to keep their relationship from seeming too gay. As much as we like blaming the writers, it's possible that they did originally intend to make their romance more explicit and mutual at some point, and they were stopped by the powers that be for whatever reason. The series finale takes place 10 years later, where we get to see the official birth of Batman. We also learn that Jim arrested Ed and Oswald shortly after the events of the last episode, and that they have been separated for an entire decade. So, thanks Gotham for immediately undermining the importance of them finally choosing one another and teaming up. Also, fuck you, Jim, you hypocrite. You're able to just overlook Barbara and Lee's crimes because you like them, but Ed and Oswald have to be locked up after they helped you save Gotham? Sure, they're serial killers and probably continue to do crime immediately after the last episode ended, but you couldn't just do them a solid and let them do their thing? Alright, homophobe. Anyway, they're both conveniently freed on the same day, and we see them reunite, and Ed looks at Oswald like he's ready to have a 10-course meal, and we find out that Ed likes them thick.
A little thicker in the middle.
And they end the series together as supervillain companions. It's nice. I can easily imagine a romance happening between them in their near future. I don't hate their ending. Yet, it still feels cowardly. Jim and Lee end up married. Bruce and Selina have a canon romance that we know will continue past the show's ending. But Ed and Oswald, a dynamic that has taken up the majority of their storylines for the past 3 seasons and have a ton of support behind them, get an ambiguous send-off that tries to make everyone happy without having to commit to letting them kiss, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why they're treated differently than the other pairings. Honestly, the main takeaway I want people to learn from all of this is that gay people shouldn't have to continue to settle. We're tired of taking breadcrumbs and ambiguous endings. We're tired of getting our hopes up at the possibility of seeing a gay romance played out on screen, only to have the rug pulled out from under us. There's a question worth asking about whether or not what Gotham did with Ed and Oswald should be considered queerbaiting. If you don't know, queerbaiting is a practice typically used by TV shows and movies where they include hints and subtext that implies the possibility of a gay romance or a gay character to get queer audiences interested, but never plan on actually going through with making the gay content canon. Gotham did canonically write a storyline that was gay. Oswald really did love Ed, and they didn't shy away from stating that outright. A story can include a gay man experiencing unrequited love without it being homophobic or called queerbaiting, although it is a very tired and overdone trope. But the main problem here is that Ed did love Oswald back. Or at least it was written and played like he did in every interaction leading up to the point where they took a turn and introduced Isabella, so what's the point in then pretending like he didn't? Just to subvert our expectations? They then showed us again that he was at least attracted to him when he had that homoerotic hallucination about him, but they always came up short from confirming it. After the hallucination scene happened, Corey Michael Smith, who played Ed, responded to people saying that Ed was turned on in that scene by telling them to get their heads out of the gutter. Sir, you played that scene horny. This is on you. Don't blame us for coming to the natural conclusion here. Personally, I think them continuing to hint that Ed might return his feelings and then having their social media team post things hinting at the possibility of romance blooming between them, only for it to lead to nothing, was queerbaiting, even if it wasn't a cut and dry example we've seen in shows like Supernatural or Sherlock. I also think it's a little weird that they were fine with the Penguin being confirmed gay, but saying the Riddler is bi was just a step too far for them. Like, the Riddler? I don't think it would come as much of a shock to anyone if the Riddler is canonically into guys. Why the hell was maintaining the Riddler's non-existent heterosexuality so fucking important here? Look at this man! No straight people have that level of showmanship. Was forcing an Ed and Lee romance really worth all the obstacles you had to jump through just to avoid showing that this man might be into another man, even though it would have made way more logical sense for him to pursue Oswald romantically, if anyone? It genuinely could have been really entertaining to watch the Riddler and the Penguin date each other, and I'm not just saying that because I shipped them or whatever. Corey and Robin had a natural chemistry, and it would have been really refreshing to see a gay romance played by 2 openly queer actors. It would also probably be an interesting writing exercise. I mean, imagine the comedic and angst opportunities there. It could have been a chance to explore their dynamic in different parts of their characters in a new way. A badly written Kristen clone and the 2 of them repeatedly trying and failing to kill each other with no actual tension or stakes involved in their deathmatch because, say it with me, death means nothing in Gotham, was such a boring and lazy route to take. If I had a dime for every fan theory I read that ended up being significantly more interesting and clever than what we actually got, I would be making this video with a much higher quality microphone. Barbara and Tabitha were a chance for Gotham to actually portray a same-gender relationship correctly. Unlike Ed, they never danced around confirming Barbara and Tabitha's bisexuality. In fact, it's one of the first things we learn about both characters. Yet, time and time again, they drop the ball by refusing to commit to giving their romance the same treatment as the other canon relationships. Actually calling them girlfriends would give the illusion that they are now exclusive and off limits from the men in the show, which takes away from the fantasy that cishet men have of bi women. Bisexual women are often hot in concept to men because they come with the sexual fantasy of 2 women having sex, but they still perceive them as being a viable candidate as a sexual partner for themselves. As soon as bi women break out of that sexually free and fluid idea by actually pursuing a committed monogamous relationship with a woman, and therefore are no longer seen as available for men, the fantasy can be broken. I'm not trying to diss bi women who are with men or are polyamorous or choose to have open relationships. That choice is up to them, and I respect whatever and whoever bi women choose to do. But there is a biphobic mindset that people have that bi women can never truly be pinned down or choose to be with one partner, and if they do, it's preferable in the eyes of many that they ultimately choose to be with a man. We see all of this reflected in Gotham's treatment of Barbara and Tabitha. In a way, I think that Barbara and Tabitha's relationship has the direct opposite problem of Ed and Oswald's, and it kind of perfectly encapsulates some of the core sources of discomfort towards gay women versus gay men. Barbara and Tabitha's relationship is allowed to be physical, but never fully emotional. Ed and Oswald's relationship is allowed to be emotional, but never physical. The most important thing I want people involved in the entertainment industry to understand is that the choices they make in their stories actually impact their audiences. When Gotham Season 3 was airing, I was already in a pretty bad place mentally, so when I started to have hope that I would get to see two of my favorite characters be confirmed to be LGBTQ, one of them bisexual like myself, as well as ending up in a relationship together, it became something I clung to lift my spirits. When it ended up not only being a disappointment, but such an overwhelmingly cruel disappointment, my mental health plummeted. Now, I'm aware I can't place all the blame on Gotham for this. There were other things going on in my life at that time that already had me in a bad place, and it's never a good idea to lean your entire mental health on a piece of fiction, especially one that I already knew didn't treat their bi women well. But that doesn't change the fact that the effect it had on not only myself, but several other people I knew at the time who were just as excited and invested as I was a very real outcome of the choices they made in their show. When depicting marginalized groups in the media, you must put consideration into the possible negative implications within your work, because these are groups of people that are already underrepresented and vulnerable. So the negative outcomes of your work could have a huge effect on the way they view themselves, as well as the way that outsiders view them as a whole. This goes farther than just whether or not a ship is canon. People will always inevitably say that it's just fiction, that these characters aren't real, so to discuss real-life issues like homophobia in connection with it is, for some reason, unnecessary. But fictional or not, our media has a real-world effect on all of us in every aspect of our lives. So if a show portrays bi women as sexual fodder for cishet male fantasies, that has an effect. If a show makes all of their canonically gay characters evil murderers, that has an effect. And if a show has a storyline start with a gay man falling in love, which eventually leads to him getting tortured and pushed into a river, that has an effect. TV and films don't live in a vacuum. Gotham is over, and their mistakes can't be fixed. But we can learn from them. And you never know, maybe one day someone who watched Gotham can write a comic, a TV spin-off, or a Batman movie where the Penguin and the Riddler are in love. If that day comes, maybe then we can finally feel vindicated and fill the hole left by Gotham's wasted potential. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, please like and feel free to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. This was my first video essay, but I hope to make more moving forward. So if you're interested in this type of media analysis, go ahead and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I don't have an established ending line for my videos yet, so I guess I'll experiment until I find one that really works. See you next time, and stay groovy. Bye!